in this performance, and I was so touched by it. And I said, anything you need me to do, I'm there. So this is my first Q&A moderation. We'll see how it goes. I'm gonna throw it to you guys at the very, very end, okay? And we'll gab a bit, but I know you guys probably have some questions to ask. So thank you for inviting me to be here today.
Thank you for having me. I feel
course.
very far away.
I know, my darling.
I know that.
All right.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, good.
There.
So
Yes.
I know you've worked both on stage,
Yes.
and now on film. Can you talk to me about the different process
Yeah.
from, making a musical live performance to creating it for film?
Yeah. When you're on stage, you have the sort of immediacy of the 8-show-a-week process. So you're performing 6 days a week, 8 shows a week, and depending on the time, if you're at Christmas, it can be anything from 11 shows a week to 16, which means that you're essentially training constantly to make sure that you can sustain that amount. And then the practical side is that when you're on a stage, you can be in a theater that holds up to 2,000 people, but those 2,000 people can be from the ground right up into the ceiling. So the energy that you're using has to be sent not broadly outwards. It doesn't necessarily have to be like that, but it needs to be sent in a direction that the person at the very back of the very top of the theater also receives it, which is a different version of truth, because you want to be able to make sure that whoever is up there they pay to see it too. So you want to make sure that they also receive what you're giving from the stage. When you're doing it for film, you have to understand that everyone can be right here in your eyes, up your nostrils, with you. So what's going on inside can be just loud enough for the camera to catch. It can be much quieter than it is when you're standing on a stage and doing it live. But for the singing of it all, we sang live. So it still was training, because we're using different parts of ourselves. So now you'll do a take and you might do that same take 27 times, 20 times, 15, depending on what's necessary. And because there are loads of technical things going on, maybe Alice Brooks, our DOP, just needs to sync up with Carsten, our first camera operator, because there's movement going on. Or Sim catches, my hairstylist catches that all the baby hairs aren't in the right place, so I saw it on camera, so can we do it again? Or lighting's not quite right. Or sweet Simon Hayes, who does the sound, is like, oh, I can hear something in the background, I can't catch her voice in the right way. So we do it until everything syncs up and we catch that perfect take. So there's a lot more patience in the capturing of it on camera, but the energy is still truth, both on stage and on camera. For me, as long as it's coming from the most truthful place you can, then let it be that. There's some people that believe in, like, you call it ugly singing, where your mouth is as wide as it can be, when you can, I don't know what that is. I just sing whatever I sing. If it's ugly singing, then let it be ugly singing. I want to get the sound out as well as I can. So if it's that last note where the mouth is big, old and wide and the eyes are closed, then that's what it's going to be. But if it's not and it's to yourself, that could be, I'll do the same thing on the stage as I do it on screen, not because the camera's there, but because that's what means the most. That's what makes the most sense and is the most truthful. Yeah.
Well, now that since you brought up the singing,
I
don't know if you guys have seen it. There is BTS of you doing Defying Gravity, and I've sang live in George and Tammy or whatever. Nothing like what this woman has done. She is flipping around and singing live. I encourage you all to Google this, to find this video of you singing live at the end of the film. And it makes so much sense why I was so incredibly moved, because you weren't just standing there and, you felt the stress on your body, and it channeled in what you were just describing, the live singing. Can you talk about the stunts? I've just never seen that before, where someone was doing a massive stunt and singing like you can do that. I don't know how you can. You're not human.
It took a lot of training. Joe McLaren, our stunt coordinator, had a heart attack when I said to her, I would like to do my own stunts. Can you help me, because I'm also going to be singing live? So both Antea Bachet, my wonderful vocal coach, and Joe McLaren helped me get to a place where my body was used to the movement. That's the first thing I had to do. I had to train to make sure that my body was used to the stunts, the harness, the corset at the same time, the rig, the wires, because all of that moves your body in the way that you can't really prepare for until you get there. So I got used to that to a degree, and then you put the singing into place. Now, the practical side of singing is this. You need your lungs and you need your breath to make the sound. Usually, you use the diaphragm to make big sounds. That's where you get the support. When you're wearing a corset and a wire, you can't use your diaphragm because it's restricted. So you would send the breath into the lungs. That's what would give you the support, and usually the musculature around your body. This is going to sound very technical. I apologize. I'm a geek. Go with me. So when your lungs are slightly restricted, if you're wearing a corset and all of those things, you have to use the full capacity of your lungs. And usually we only use the front part of our lungs. We sort of breathe in, and we get air in the front. We call it a catch breath or a snatch breath. But when you need lots of air, you learn to make your breath go into your back and sides, because that's actually the full capacity of your lungs. You don't realize that we have small little pieces of ligature and muscles in between the bones that make up our rib cage. They stretch. So when you breathe in and take a full breath, you can fill up really big. There's loads of air, and you can go for ages and ages without taking a breath, and you can keep speaking or singing or making a really loud sound without needing to take another breath for a really, 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 really long time. That's what you need to do. But when you're belting, which is what we call that big sound that comes out in the end, you usually need the ground or gravity. I didn't have gravity, literally. So what we did was to find a way to imagine that the ground was beneath us. You send the energy into the muscles around the body. You send the energy into the legs, so that when I'm standing in the air, if you put tension into the muscles of the legs, they push back on you. If you put tension in the muscles in your arms and your chest and your back, then it gives you the pressure that you need in order to make those sounds. So it's like creating gravity and creating ground without it. And that is how we make the sound. And intention. All the intention in the world is to make sure that she can roar at the end. I wanted to feel like I could fly when I was doing it, because it made sense for her to know what it feels like to be in flight and to be able to sing it and mean it. So I was willing to really do whatever was necessary to make sure that the sound came out and it felt like it was meant, because I did. So you do what your body needs, and you find the way to get that sound the way you need it to be. Yeah.
I think that's what was so moving about it, is it doesn't feel, of course, we all know the incredible artist you are and the voice that you have. But sometimes I find in these films, the singing overrides the performance.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about intention, you know, more focus is on the beauty of a note rather than what you're trying to do and what you're trying to affect by doing it. And watching your performance, I never felt like, okay, here's the song, it's happening. I always felt like I was on your journey with you, which is a huge gift because there's a lot of great singers out there, but not a lot of great singers, actors out there. And you are both, my friend.
Thank you very much,
it was phenomenal. Like you could take the singing out of the film and it would still be like an insane performance.
Thank you very much for saying that.
So talk to me about creating her. There's this legacy, Elphaba, you know, there's so many incredible artists who've played her. How did you go about that? I know sometimes when, like for Doll's House, there's a legacy of Nora's out there,
That's right? Yeah.
So what do you do? Did you try to close your eyes to it? Did you try to create your own? Did you take in the history of the Elphabas? What was your process in that?
I think it's impossible to sort of ignore the Elphabas that have come before, especially, you know, you have Adina and you have Kristen Chenoweth, who created this from the beginning. And so you don't want to erase the work that they've done. You do want to sort of pay homage to it, but you also don't want to slip into mimicking what they do, because I don't think that actually respects the work that they've done at all. I knew that I didn't need to try to make it different. I just knew it would end up being different because it was in my body, coming from my mind, and it would have to be filled with my experiences and my truth. All that legacy of Elphabas all inevitably knows what it feels like to be different, feel different. And I also know what it feels like to be different, feel different, experience shame, experience embarrassment, not feel like you feel included, all of those things. But what I have experienced is going to be different to what everyone else experiences. And I just wanted to funnel all of those feelings, experiences through this version of Elphaba. And so that makes her different, full stop, because she comes from me. And that is not, the intention is not to be like, right, I'm going to make this completely different. The intention is just to tell the truth of what I know as Cynthia and what I understand in my life to move through her, and find out what that version, what she needs to come to life. And I the focus for me maybe is different from the focus of the other Elphabas. You know, everyone has their own little thing, and for me, I really wanted Elphaba to have joy and vulnerability and hope, so that the heartbreak is even bigger than if it was just the expectation that she would be let down all the time. I don't think, I sort of never went into it thinking Elphaba expects everyone to let her down. I think she expects to be stared at. I think she knows that whenever she walks into a room, people are, standoffish and they're a little bit frightened. But I don't think she expects people to let her down all the time. I think she always can sort of see the good in people. And so has always got this like edge of hope or joy in her. That's why when we get to The Wizard and I wanted it to be a completely glorious celebration of what could happen. And that when you find out what it really is, the fall from that is even greater because of how high she has to climb to get there.
I've also noticed quite often in musicals or large films, big budget films, it can actually not feel very personal.
Yeah.
So as you're talking about this, I'm understanding there was, I don't know what the name of the scene, in the ballroom.
Yeah.
I was crying that was when I first was like, oh, she's got me. I was really so moved by what you did. And your performance is so fragile and subtle and open. There's a vulnerability that I found so incredibly beautiful and surprising in a film this size. Can you talk to me about the creation of that sequence?
We so Christopher Scott, Will Loftus, and Comfort Fidoku, they choreographed a piece for this, and they showed it to me when I went in to start rehearsals for it, and it was really lovely, but it didn't feel like it was her language. So I asked if we could create a piece that felt like Elphaba's language, like what is her movement language? Paul Taswell, the costumer, the costume supervisor and creator of all wonderful things that you see on anyone's body in this world, says that Elphaba is the sharp edges in Oz. And I believe the same of her. There's loads of curves and lots of S's and lots of circles and lots of, soft, round things in Oz. And she's all, if you look at her costume, she's all angles. It's all triangles. It's all square. It's all points. That hat is the point. It's like jagged. And the movement they had created was so soft and lyrical. And I was like, I think she speaks a different language. And I wanted to figure out what stops her from leaving after she's been so embarrassed and so rejected in a space. What keeps her there after she takes off that hat and decides to take up the space? So I wanted to find out what the reason for this piece was. Why does she stay? And I thought, well, if she's staying, there's a decision that she makes to be okay with being alone. There's a decision that she makes to reclaim the space that was sort of taken from her, like snatched out from under her feet. And there's a decision that she makes to eventually invite Glinda to change the way we've been doing this. It doesn't work anymore. And then I asked, well, why does she pick the hat up? Why does she put the hat back on again? There's got to be a reason for that. Because if that hat's caused that much pain, why would she put it back on again? And I was like, well, what if this dance is the first time she tries to imbue something with power, the first time she tries a spell to make sure that that thing that caused her pain actually becomes the thing that is a source of power for her. And all those things wrapped up in that dance is sort of what we put on the floor. And then I had to be brave enough to open up a well of like hurt and loss and pain and shame and rejection that I think for a while I was afraid to look at. Cynthia was afraid to look at. But I knew it was really important for this, because you can't do this dance unless you're open to feeling all of that, because you can't get to the point where she forgives if you don't actually believe where the hurt is. So I really just let myself feel all of it. I let myself think of like the rejection from the father, rejection from being in front of people, shame that's been put on me, all of those things. I just let myself feel all of those things. And then when we get to a point where I could invite Glinda in, Ari hadn't learnt that choreography. I had shown it to her maybe twice before, and that time I showed it to her, she didn't know it. So when we're doing that dance together, she is actually learning from me. We are mirroring each other. She doesn't know the choreography, and on purpose didn't learn it so that we did have to work together. So those moments, and when those tears fall, they fell every single time. And that time she caught the tear, it wasn't choreographed that she would catch the tear. She just did it. It was an automatic thing. The tear fell and it came. And if you listen carefully, she says, "It's okay." It's really quiet. It's really quiet. But Ari says to me when she wipes my tear, "It's okay." And then we continue. And the reason I pause is because I really cannot, like, there's a moment where I actually can't carry on for a second. And when she says okay, there's a split chance that I could break completely and not be able to go on, or I have to take a breath before we continue. That's me actually going, I have to take a breath before I continue, because if I don't take a breath, I will fall out on this floor right here. Those are real emotions that you're watching, and that's a real moment for both of us. Like, we have to carry on. Let's carry on. Yeah.
I don't know why. I didn't expect when I went in to see so much authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I didn't imagine I was going to see Wicked.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and then be crying, because I really felt I everything you're saying, I really felt how authentic it was for you, and how deeply personal in a sense it was for you. How long did you work on it? I know. I mean, I know, but I want you to tell everyone, you know, your journey with preparing it. And
so I was cast in 2021. We started rehearsals August of 2022. We started shooting in December 2022. We shot all the way through 2023 up until July. A strike happened. 6 months of waiting happened in between. We came back at the top of this year in January, and the last thing I shot was Defying Gravity. We finished in February. So it's been a journey. Yeah. Yeah. There is nothing like holding onto a character for 6 months to make you appreciate how much a piece means to you, when you're sort of like doing this, holding the line, because you can't let go of them completely, but they can't really be with you all the time because you're not on set. But it was a very strange experience to hang on to Elphaba for 6 months and keep checking that she was still there. There's just random days, just like, hands touch, eyes, you still there? Okay, you're still there. Okay, good. Okay, you're still there. Good. Just checking every day that she's still available to me, that she hasn't just gone away. And actually the fear that she might not be there was just an insane experience, because you just don't know. And then you get back on set and she just shows up. That was really, really cool. Yeah.
we talked about your vocal work. Mm-hmm. We talked about your stunt work while doing your live vocal work.
Yeah.
We talked about the vulnerability and the openness and the authenticity. Can you talk to me about the physical transformation of finding her? Just like, you know, I know I've read some things about, you know, how you found the nails and the look of the character, you know, but also I'd love to know, how long was it? What was your day like?
My day usually started at about 2 or 2:30 a.m. I would work out for an hour or two in the morning, get ready, and then my pickup was usually at about 4:30 or 5 o'clock on a normal day, and then I would get in. My makeup would take anything from 2 hours and 45 minutes to 4 hours, depending on how much green we would do, and then we would have like a 12-hour day on set, and then I would take another hour and a half to take it all off before I went back home again and start the day again. But I asked for it, so yeah. I mean, because I needed it. You know, I wanted the transformation. I wanted to be able to look into a mirror and see the green lady staring back at me, because I felt like it was additive to the experience, not just for me, but for everyone on set. You know, that when there are people who have not seen me look like this until this tour. Like, no one has. There are people who did not realize that this is what I look like outside of. Oh, she doesn't have hair. Wait a minute. You know, but I it meant that you got really genuine reactions. That the interaction with people was like, you have green eyes. Well, how does the green feel like? So you're getting real emotions from people. I wanted that because it meant that every scene felt real. But the transformation was really special because the green that they use on the other Elphabas didn't work on my skin tone. It had the wrong tone in it. Usually I think it had like a pink or sometimes a white undertone in the green. So it meant that when it was on me, it was chalky. But my the head of makeup, Francis, and my makeup artist, Alice Jones, rather, two Alices, went and found a green for me. It ended up being called Cynthia's Green. It has a yellow highlighter undertone in it. So when it's on my skin, it looks like my skin. It meant that just enough of my actual skin tone came through under the green so that you get this sort of glow almost. And then, so that we weren't just a blank canvas of green, I should mention, the first time I went completely bald was for this. I shaved my head because it was the only way to make sure that my scalp was green, so that when you move the hair around, the hairline and the scalp is green. But the only way you can do that is if you color your hair green. So I shaved it off and said, okay, make it all green. And I stuck with it because I liked how it felt. And then to fill in the detail, we would have like a deep, deep purple for all the contouring, but we have freckles, and the freckles need to be in the same place every day. So what they did was create a vacuum form of my face, which would be used every single day, and they would airbrush the freckles in place. And then from memory, they would, if we one day we add one little freckle, so that the growth of her, she changed, like little subtle things, like, okay, there's going to be a new freckle here, or there's going to be a new freckle on her lip, and the glasses was a find that we found. We went through several glasses. I was very picky about all of the things because I wanted her to feel three-dimensional. I wanted her to feel like a real person. All these choices, the nails, of course, were a thing that I loved, but I did my research and realized that the original Wicked Witch of the West, Margaret Hamilton, had nails. There is a wonderful picture of her in black and white, but there's the colorized version. It's that infamous picture where she's sort of like this. She has nails. And I thought, well, where does that come from? And I thought, well, what if it's a part of her DNA that just things grow differently? Like she has nails grow on her. Her eyes are green. We searched for the right eye color, and that wasn't the original thing that we found. We had like 4 different versions of this eye color. And I said, well, what if the eye color just removes you enough away from her that you have to sort of like tilt your head and think, there's something different about this lady. What is it? And we had eye colors that were like painted, and it shut you off, so you couldn't get in. And then we found this very generic green contact lens that worked. It meant that you weren't shut out, but you removed enough to be like, she's different, but I can still see her. So it was about finding all these things that allowed you to come in close enough, but when you look, there is something different about her. We spent a long time creating this person. The braids were a particular love of mine. It was the one thing I wanted from the very beginning because it connected who I am as a Black woman to Elphaba as well. And I knew it also didn't remove us so far away from the Elphabas that we've met. So it's still long and dark and wavy, but the microbraid is the detail that connects you to who I am culturally as well. So you get the marriage of 2 worlds into one. Yeah.
Well, it's clear all the work that you've put into it is resonating because so many people around the world are really connected to your performance and this portrayal of it. And but I'm sure there are people here who have questions to ask you, even though I want to ask you everything. But I'm kind of blind. Oh, I'm only asking one question. Who is dying to ask a question? Like the most important.
Many hands just came up.
So I think you need to choose.
Okay, well, someone has 2 hands up. So I'm going to go into 2 hands. You win. Go on.
You explain very well your process about Wicked, but actually in every movie or series I've seen you, you've been able to create a very specific, very personal energy for your character that also informs the body language as you explained. So my question is, how do you approach characters thinking about their body language in some way?
Oh, body, I love working from the physical. I'm a very physical being. I'm working out and all of those things. I'm very connected to my body. And I think body language tells you a lot about who the person is. So sometimes I start there. Shoes always help me because I'm like, how does that make a person walk? What are the clothes that they have to live in? How does that make them change? But also it's about, I've tried to find out what's the ultimate goal for a person? What do they want? For Elphaba, she wants to be loved, but she has her guard up. So, you know, when she walks, there's a slight saunter. It's like there's a little attitude in it, you know? It's like, stay away just far enough. I need my space. What is going, like, and there's an air of annoyance, a little bit of annoyance when she looks at people, especially when she walks through that dining room in What Is This Feeling? That sort of like, oh, for God's sakes, you know? But then you look at Aretha and there's like an air of like, I know better. There's an air of like, don't come near me if you don't have a good question. You know? And then Holly is sort of like confused and feels awkward and has business to do, so she moves like slightly. It's all hunched forwards, like, I have somewhere to be. I have somewhere to be. And then you have Harriet, who's actually really open. And when she runs, it's not uniform. This is a person who has a skill but is not trained. So she moves wildly until she becomes a person in the army, and then it's forward, up straight. It's about finding out what they want. What do they need? If I'm leading with my chest, it means I'm not afraid of you. If I lead with my hips, it says stay away, but I have some power, right? That's how we communicate without speaking. Sometimes all we have to do is move our body in a certain way, and I know what you mean. If you come towards me and I go, that means don't come near me. I'm not in the mood. If you move towards me and I go, hi, then you know immediately, oh, she's open. She's welcoming. You know, body language, we speak body language, all of us do, before we say something. Often it's what the person's body is doing more than what the words are saying. Yeah? So I like to figure out what that is. I really enjoy that. That's like one of my favorite things to do. It's the speaking without speaking. Yeah. Yeah.
I have bad news, everybody. We're done.
I'm sorry.
But please remember this woman, because this performance was phenomenal.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I love you.
I love you so much. Thank you
want
so
you
much
to
for
win
doing
every
this.
award.
Thank you.
So, you guys, the great
you.
Cynthia Erivo.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.